Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging into a topic that touches, well, pretty much everything, from the goods on store shelves to the cost of our flights.
That's right, the global transportation and logistics landscape.
It's a world in constant motion, isn't it? Facing huge challenges, but also some remarkable innovation.
Absolutely. And the sources for this deep dive, we've got a comprehensive market intelligence report, plus various news analyses from just this past week.
Okay.
And they reveal an industry navigating, let's say, a period of really intense strain. We're talking about a landscape where strategic agility, resilience.
That's become way more critical than just cutting costs.
Far more critical, exactly.
So our mission today is really to cut through all that noise, give you a shortcut to being truly well-informed about the forces reshaping how goods and people move around the planet. We'll untack the geopolitical shifts, dissect the pressures on global freight markets,
Explore the bleeding edge of transportation tech.
and even peek into the future of things like high-speed rail.
Yeah, we'll highlight the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights, helping you understand not just what is happening.
But why it matters.
Exactly. And the broader implications, for all of us.
So buckle up, because here's where it gets really interesting.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this first big theme then. How state-level policies, geopolitical conflicts, are increasingly holding the stability of global supply chains hostage. That sounds dramatic.
It does sound dramatic, but the sources paint a very clear picture. We're seeing intensifying risk and cost.
Right.
And what's fascinating here is how quickly these policy shifts can create they call it a whipsaw effect on freight flows.
A whipsaw effect, like a sudden back and forth.
Exactly. Violent reversal. Take U.S. trade policy right now. We're seeing aggressive, unpredictable tariff strategies. There's this 10% universal baseline tariff,
Okay.
and then supplemented by targeted duties up to 50% on critical industrial inputs, things like steel, copper.
And it's not just China, is it? I saw new tariffs mentioned for Mexico, the EU.
That's right. New tariffs of 30% have been announced for imports from Mexico and the European Union.
Wow.
And the EU is already preparing retaliatory measures. So this isn't just theory. It has very real-world impacts.
Definitely.
A critical point of uncertainty right now is this temporary reciprocal tariff pause between the U.S. and China. It's set to expire on August 14th.
August 14th. Okay, that's coming up soon.
It is. And that deadline is creating a palpable sense of urgency for shippers. We've actually seen a notable rebound in trans-Pacific import demand just in June.
Because companies are front-loading cargo, trying to clear customs before costs potentially jump.
Precisely. Businesses are essentially scrambling to beat the clock.
Makes sense.
Maersk reports this tariff-driven volatility. It's a chief concern for their customers. When a deadline like this is announced, it causes this artificial surge in import volumes. And that surge can overwhelm port infrastructure. We're talking drayage, rail ramps, chassis pools. All these things are designed for more predictable flows.
And then what happens after the deadline?
Well then, when the deadline passes, or maybe a reprieve is granted, volumes can just plummet. That leaves assets and labor underutilized.
So extreme volatility, up and down.
Exactly. It makes long-term infrastructure planning exceptionally difficult.
And the strategic response to all this uncertainty, what are companies doing?
Well, it's forcing a pivot away from those lean, cost-optimized supply chains we used to talk about.
Towards models built more on resilience.
Precisely. Resilience is the key word. Many companies are accelerating nearshoring initiatives, especially to Mexico, Southeast Asia.
To mitigate that geopolitical exposure. Makes sense.
Exactly, spreading the risk.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's look at Europe. The EU has intensified its economic pressure on Russia's maritime sector. Their 18th sanctions package, I think.
That's right, the 18th package. And this isn't just about adding more names to a list, is it?
Doesn't sound like it. They're going after the shadow fleet.
They are. And this raises that important question. How do you truly cripple a shadow fleet that's designed to, circumvent sanctions?
Yeah, how do you?
The EU's answer, for the first time ever, is to actually sanction a ship registry.
The registry itself? Wow.
Yeah. A ship's registry provides its legal legitimacy, right? It allows it to operate globally, get insurance, access ports.
So by targeting the registry,
The EU aims to render a large portion of this shadow fleet uninsurable and, commercially toxic, cut off its legitimacy.
that's a big move. Are we seeing ripple effects already?
We are actually. Russia's state-run port operator, Rosmorport, they've just issued a tender for mandatory underwater hull inspections.
Underwater inspections, why?
At key Baltic seaports, it seems to stem from fears of maritime sabotage after a series of mystery blasts in the area.
So that adds cost, complexity, delays.
Absolutely. New layers of all three for any ship calling at those strategic ports.
Okay, moving south to the Middle East. Obviously ongoing conflict there. But the sources suggest its impact on transportation has been, what, asymmetric?
That's a good way to put it, asymmetric. While the region remains a persistent source of risk, the impact really varies depending on the mode of transport.
How so?
Well, escalating tensions after the Israel-Iran conflict, that led to temporary airspace closures. Nations like Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain.
Right, I remember that. So widespread flight cancellations, costly diversions for air travelers.
Exactly. Significant disruption for people flying.
But what about cargo, particularly maritime?
The maritime sector, while certainly exposed, has demonstrated greater operational resilience so far. Maersk reported its core Middle East network hasn't seen systemic disruption.
Okay.
Although they did temporarily pause vessel calls to the port of Haifa in Israel before a ceasefire was reached.
Right.
But capacity from Red Sea ports, that remains constrained. And the threat from Houthi insurgents is still very much in named risk.
So it's like a persistent risk tax on trade.
That's a perfect analogy. It leads to higher insurance premiums, the need for enhanced security. It just adds cost and friction.
So all this geopolitical pressure, it's clear it's changing how supply chains are managed. What does it mean for the bigger picture?
Well, when we connect this back, this high level of uncertainty and risk is making traditional kind of siloed logistics management dangerously slow, reactive.
You need more integration, more tech.
Exactly. It's creating an undeniable business case for integrated, technology-driven platforms. You need that end-to-end visibility, that real-time control.
Like Walmart's system.
Yeah, Walmart's ongoing global rollout of its predictive self-healing inventory system is a prime example, using AI to turn real-time signals into real-time action.
So sophisticated, centralized supply chain tech is becoming fundamental.
It's becoming a fundamental requirement for resilience, for survival, really, in this new era.
That makes perfect sense. These geopolitical currents are clearly reshaping the underlying freight markets themselves. Let's shift focus there now. Maritime, road, rail, air. What are we seeing?
It's a great point to transition. Across every major mode, markets are dealing with this complex mix. Strong demand, tightening capacity, rising operational costs, and strategic realignment. It's happening everywhere.
Okay, starting with the oceans. Maritime shipping. Our sources show robust demand meeting, well, pervasive risk.
Indeed. Demand is strong globally. Take the transatlantic route, Europe to North America. Vessels are sailing full. Space is extremely limited into the U.S. through mid-July.
Wow, completely full.
Yeah. And on the Trans-Pacific, import demand from Asia into North America rebounded sharply in June. That prompted carriers like Maersk to reinstate capacity they'd previously pulled.
So peak season is definitely here.
Fully underway. High volumes of seasonal goods, too, like citrus from South Africa, garments from East Africa. That just further constrained space leads to more rolled cargo.
Meaning your shipment gets bumped to a later boat. Frustrating.
Very frustrating for shippers.
And what about corporate activity? Acquisitions, new ships?
We're seeing some consolidation. Diana Shipping took a 7.7% stake in Genco Shipping and Trading, for instance.
Carriers are also expanding fleets. Oslo-listed MPC container ships ordered 4 new 4,500 TEU vessels.
TEU, that's the standard container size measure, right?
20-foot equivalent unit, exactly. And Taiwanese carrier Yang booked new LNG-fueled box ships. So, investment in capacity.
Any diversification.
Yes, quite significantly. Japan's NYK made a huge $1.45 billion investment to acquire Walden Group's European healthcare logistics business.
Healthcare logistics, so moving into higher value stuff.
Exactly, expanding into those high-value, often more resilient supply chains.
But beneath all this commercial activity, the sources point to a growing crisis in maritime safety. This sounds really serious.
It is. It's quite sobering, actually. A new report from DNV, Maritime Safety Trends 2014-2024, it reveals casualty incidents surged, an alarming 42% between 2018 and 2024.
42%, that's an absolutely staggering jump, especially when you say the global fleet only grew by 10% in that time.
Exactly. The numbers are stark.
What on earth is driving such a dramatic increase in incidents? Well, the primary cause, accounting for 60% of cases in 2024, is machinery damage or failure.
Machinery failure.
And the report draws a very clear correlation with vessel age. It found that ships over 25 years old were involved in 41% of all reported incidents.
So older ships are much more prone to problems.
It strongly suggests that years of underinvestment in fleet renewal right across the industry may now be manifesting as a tangible, growing operational risk.
That makes sense. Plus other risks,
Yeah.
piracy, attacks.
Yes, this heightened risk environment also includes threats like piracy, missile attacks, cyber attacks. It led to new comprehensive best management practices, or BMP, maritime security guidelines for high-risk areas.
Okay.
And there's also specific attention being paid now to potential thermal runaway fires in electric vehicles being transported on car carriers. New modeling is being developed to try and mitigate those dangers.
Right. EV fires on ships, that's a specific newer risk. Okay, let's move to road freight in North America. The sources describe it as paradoxical, stability on the surface but underlying pressures.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How the headline figures can be really misleading sometimes.
How so?
Well, the forecast for total truckload volume for 2025 is nearly flat, just up 0.2% year over year. Rates are stable, up maybe 2.1%. Even diesel prices have fallen.
So that sounds odd,
On the surface, yeah. But those numbers mask critical issues. Demand isn't uniform, for one. Dry van volume is weak, but refrigerated freight shows slight growth.
Okay.
And more concerning are these leading indicators from the manufacturing sector. They're pointing towards a potential slowdown, which could hit trucking pretty soon.
So the numbers don't tell the whole story. If it's not fuel costs, what's the real challenge for trucking carriers right now?
The most acute challenge is a severe cost squeeze. But it's driven by soaring operational expenses, not fuel.
Operational expenses like what?
Insurance premiums, especially. They've become a major concern.
Why are insurance costs rising so much?
It's pushed upward by a rise in organized cargo theft, increased fraud, tariff-driven inflation impacting vehicle repair costs.
The tariffs again.
Yeah. And also higher payouts for driver wage loss and hospitalization claims. It's kind of a perfect storm hitting carriers' bottom lines.
And there's also talk of a silent crisis in trucking capacity. What's that about?
Right. This financial pressure, it gets compounded by an aging fleet. Carriers are delaying capital expenditures, putting off buying new trucks.
Leading to more frequent breakdowns?
Exactly. And orders for new Class 8 trucks, those are the big heavy-duty ones. The semi-trucks and trailers have plummeted, down 45% year over year.
45% drop in new truck orders. Wow.
Yeah. It means the fleet just isn't being renewed at a sustainable rate.
So aging fleet, fewer new trucks, rising costs.
It's eroding effective capacity. While the total number of registered trucks might look stable, the number of reliable operational trucks is actually decreasing, especially as smaller, less capitalized carriers struggle.
They get forced out or have to run older equipment.
Precisely. And this creates a highly fragile market.
Fragile how? It looks stable now, you said.
It appears stable during periods of low demand, like now. But it's highly susceptible to extreme price shocks when demand eventually rises.
Okay.
We see evidence of this in the rejection rate paradox. Despite flat overall freight volumes, tender rejection rates are climbing.
Meaning carriers are turning down more loads?
Yes. It indicates that the available pool of reliable carriers is shrinking. So any sudden spike in demand could trigger a rapid, severe spike in spot market rates. Shippers would be competing fiercely for a diminished pool of effective capacity.
Got it. A hidden fragility. Okay, from roads to rails. The U.S. rail sector shows modest growth, mostly from intermodal traffic from ports. But the big news here seems to be a potential industry-altering merger.
That's the headline grabber, definitely.
Uh-huh.
And it raises the immediate question. What happens when two absolute giants consider merging?
Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern.
That's the one. Reports emerged this week that Union Pacific UP is in early-stage merger discussions with Norfolk Southern NS.
Early stages.
Very early. But if successful, this deal would create the first true coast-to-coast U.S. transcontinental railroad, a colossus with a combined market value around $200 billion.
$200 billion, that's massive. A truly fundamental shift in the rail map. What's the strategic thinking behind such a huge move?
Well, the stated strategic rationale centers on efficiency and improved service.
How so?
Proponents argue a single-line network would eliminate delays, costs, complexities from interchanging freight between railroads, especially at the congested Chicago
And
gateway.
Chicago's always a bottleneck, isn't it?
Always. Analysts specifically pointed to NS's Wabash line as a key asset. It could potentially allow UP to route eastbound traffic around Chicago, improving fluidity.
Makes sense. And it's also a response to the CBKC merger.
Seen very much as a direct response to that 2023 merger of Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern, which created CPKC, the first railroad connecting Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. This would create a rival North American network.
Sounds like a great plan on paper, at least for the railroads involved. But surely there are monumental hurdles, regulatory hurdles?
Monumental is the right word, yes. The U.S. Surface Transportation Board, the STB, they operate under much stricter merger rules established back in 2001.
Stricter rules.
Much stricter. And they've never actually been tested on a merger of this sheer scale. Applicants have to prove the deal will enhance competition and serve the public interest.
Enhanced competition, that's a significantly higher bar than just not harming it.
A much higher bar. Opposition is expected from, well, pretty much everyone else. Shippers worried about reduced competition, labor unions, rival railroads.
And the STB itself.
The STB itself is currently deadlocked, a 2-2 partisan split. Most analysts believe no deal will even be formally proposed until a fifth member is nominated and confirmed.
Which might not happen until...
maybe 2026, so this is a long game.
So let's boil that down. This isn't just a merger, it's potentially the start of a domino effect.
Yeah.
Could consolidate North American rail into just a handful of rail-opolies.
That's the fear, and perhaps the likely outcome.
And for shippers, that means a fundamental shift in negotiating power, likely higher prices for decades.
That's exactly the long-term implication many are worried about. If a UP-NS merger succeeds, it creates the second, even larger transcontinental powerhouse after CPKC.
Leaving the other big players, BNSF, CSX,
at a severe competitive disadvantage, likely forcing them to pursue their own merger just to compete.
So you end up with maybe two dominant U.S. east-west carriers and the two big Canadian north-south carriers.
Potentially, a fundamentally restructured North American rail landscape. It would have profound, lasting implications for shipper leverage, pricing power, the entire intermodal supply chain, really for generations to come.
Wow. Okay, finally, let's touch on air cargo. Our sources say it's experiencing renewed strength, but maybe not for the usual positive economic reasons.
That's right. Demand is up 6.3% year-on-year in the latest data we have from April 2025.
6.3% sounds good.
It does. But this growth is less an indicator of broad economic health and more a direct function of all the disruption we've just been talking about in surface transport.
Ah, so businesses are using air freight as a workaround.
Increasingly, yes. As a tactical, high-cost solution to circumvent ocean shipping delays, port congestion, those looming tariff deadlines.
It's acting as a release valve.
Exactly. A critical release valve for supply chains under extreme pressure. It lets companies move time-sensitive products when ocean transit times just become unreliable.
So good for air cargo carriers short-term, but maybe not a great sign for the overall economy.
Right. It makes the sector's performance an unreliable barometer of underlying consumer and industrial demand right now. It's more about coping with pain than reflecting prosperity.
Okay, that covers the current market pressures. Let's shift gears now, look towards the future. The industry is being fundamentally reshaped by these twin imperatives, automation and decarbonization. What are the big developments actually breaking through?
Well, take the autonomous truck market. It's poised for really substantial growth. Projections show it increasing from around $40 billion in 2024 to nearly $180 billion by 2035.
Wow, huge growth projected. And companies are pushing forward.
Definitely. Companies like Aurora Innovation, Torque Robotics, Plus, Waymo, they're all moving ahead with commercial deployment plans, initially focusing on those hub-to-hub operations, mostly in the U.S. Sunbelt.
Hub-to-hub meaning long stretches of highway driving.
Exactly. And even the truck manufacturers, the OEMs like Volvo, they're developing entirely new truck platforms engineered from the ground up specifically for autonomous operations.
So the technology is clearly advancing rapidly. But what's genuinely holding back widespread deployment? Is it still just the tech, or is it something else now?
It's increasingly something else. The path to widespread deployment is really blocked by a formidable regulatory maze.
Regulation. Always regulation.
Well, the United States currently lacks a federal framework for autonomous vehicles.
No single federal rule.
No, which creates this chaotic, contradictory patchwork of state-level laws. And that severely impedes interstate commerce.
Which is the main point of long-haul autonomous trucks.
Exactly.
Meaning a truck could be legal in one state, drive across the border, and suddenly be illegal in the next. That sounds incredibly frustrating.
That's precisely the situation. You have states like Texas and Florida that have passed permissive laws, but then California, Delaware, Maryland, They're debating or have passed more restrictive legislation, often requiring a human driver to still be present.
So the future of autonomous trucking hinges less on the tech itself.
And more on political and legal resolution. Absolutely. And beyond regulation, there's still significant technical challenges too, don't get me wrong.
Like handling those rare edge cases.
Exactly, those unpredictable one-in-a-million scenarios, plus the high cost of the sensor suites and just overcoming public safety concerns. There's still work to do there.
Okay, let's talk about the electric push. Two interesting developments this week. Tesla officially entering India and a pretty innovative new EV grant in the UK. Let's start with India.
Right. Tesla has officially launched operations in India, opened its first experience center in Mumbai, started selling the Model Y.
How are they doing it? Importing the cars?
Yes, they're starting with what's called a completely built unit, or CBU, import strategy. Vehicles are made elsewhere, imported whole.
Which means they face India's steep import tariffs.
Exactly. And that results in a premium price point. The Model Y is starting at about 72,000 US dollars over there.
72,000. So what's the immediate market impact likely to be at that price? Are they going to shake things up right away?
Probably not disrupt the overall Indian EV market in the short term. That market's dominated by much more affordable models from domestic leaders like Tata Motors.
So Tesla's competing in the luxury niche.
Initially, yes. Competing against established luxury players like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, who also offer EVs.
But long-term potential.
The long-term impact could be transformative. Tesla brings huge brand prestige, right? It raises consumer awareness of EVs, sets new benchmarks for in-car tech that could catalyze innovation across the whole Indian auto ecosystem.
But the real disruption comes if they commit to local manufacturing.
That's the key. Local manufacturing would allow for much more aggressive pricing. It could really shake things up.
Okay, over to the UK. This new electric car grant has a fascinating twist, doesn't it? It's not just about zero tailpipe emissions.
No, it's much more strategic than that. This new $650 million grant, it starts July 16, 2025, offers a tiered discount on eligible EVs.
Tiered based on what?
Based on manufacturing sustainability. That's what's novel. Unlike previous grants focused only on tailpipe emissions, eligibility for this new scheme is tied to the embedded carbon in the vehicle's production life cycle.
Embedded carbon, so the carbon footprint of making the car, not just driving it.
Exactly. Before it even rolls off the assembly line. To participate, automakers need their corporate carbon reduction goals validated by the Independent Science-Based Targets Initiative, SBTI.
Okay.
And the actual grant amount a specific model gets depends on sustainability metrics, like the co-aero emissions generated during its manufacturing, battery production, the percentage of renewable energy used in its assembly plant.
Wow. So using consumer subsidies to drive industrial decarbonization.
That's precisely the goal. It's a pioneering attempt, creating a whole new axis of competition for automakers based on how sustainably they build their cars.
Very interesting. Finally, in this tech section, let's tackle sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. Sources call it critical for decarbonizing aviation, but it's caught in that frustrating chicken and egg dilemma. How does the industry break that cycle?
Yeah, the core of the problem really is, how do you scale something if nobody wants to invest because it's too expensive?
And it's too expensive because nobody's investing to scale it.
It's exactly that vicious cycle. Global SAF supply right now is minuscule, less than 1% of total jet fuel consumption. And it's prohibitively expensive, 3 to 5 times more than conventional jet fuel.
So producers can't get investment without guaranteed buyers.
Right. They need those firm, long-term offtake agreements from airlines to justify massive investments.
But airlines hesitate because of the high price and uncertain supply.
Precisely. Stuck in that loop.
And this isn't just hypothetical, is it? There's also this feedstock war, making things worse. That sounds intense.
It is intense. The most commercially mature, most cost-effective way to produce SAF right now is called the HEFA pathway.
Right.
It uses feedstocks like used cooking oil, animal fats.
Not using waste products.
Yeah. But here's the problem. Those are the exact same feedstocks used to produce renewable diesel for trucks and cars.
Competition.
Fierce competition. Driven by powerful government incentives, the renewable diesel industry has scaled up incredibly rapidly. It's now consuming the vast majority of the available supply of these limited feedstocks. The U.S. renewable diesel sector alone now requires more of this low-carbon lipid feedstock than the entire country produces annually.
Wow. So the aviation industry, trying to scale up SAF, finds itself in direct, zero-sum competition with the already established road transport sector for a scarce resource. That's brutal.
It is brutal, and this fierce competition drives up feedstock prices for both industries. It makes both SAF and renewable diesel more expensive, questioning the economic viability of decarbonization efforts in both road and air transport.
So how do they break this deadlock? Find different feedstocks?
That's the only way forward long term. The industry must commercialize alternative production pathways that use more abundant, non-lipid feedstocks.
Like what?
We're talking about technologies like gasification plus Fischer-Tropsch that can convert things like municipal solid waste, agricultural residue.
Acutely abundant waste.
Right. And also alcohol to jet, which uses ethanol. But these technologies, they're more complex, more capital intensive, and just less commercially mature right now.
So the future of aviation decarbonization really hinges on scaling these advanced pathways.
Absolutely. It's critical to get beyond the HEFA feedstock bottleneck.
Okay, from the skies back down to the rails. High-speed rail. It continues to be a focal point for national infrastructure investment, doesn't it? And a key battleground for tech and geopolitical influence. It feels like more than just transport.
It really does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you're right. HSR development isn't just about building faster trains. It's a clear reflection of broader industrial and political strategy. It's often about national pride, projecting power, building alliances.
The sources draw a really clear contrast between Asia's technological lead and Europe's integration challenge. What makes Asia, particularly China and Japan, so dominant here?
Well, Asia holds that clear lead, largely because of its commitment to building entirely new, dedicated high-speed infrastructure from the ground up. It's what they call a greenfield approach.
Starting from scratch, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which allows for the most advanced systems. That means higher operational speeds. You've got trains in China running commercially at 350 kilometers per hour.
350 kilometers, wow.
Yeah. Greater line capacity, deployment of cutting-edge tech like driverless HSR, even maglev trains. And look at Japan's Tokaido Shinkansen, opened way back in 1964.
Still a benchmark, right?
Still boasts higher frequencies and passenger throughput than any comparable corridor in Europe. It's a testament to that purpose-built design.
So what about Europe? Why are they lagging behind, especially given they have world-class engineering companies like Siemens and Alstom?
Europe's HSR network is more of a patchwork. It frequently blends new high-speed segments with upgraded conventional lines.
Not always dedicated high-speed tracks.
Not always. And the primary challenge isn't really a lack of technological know-how. Siemens and Alstom are world leaders in HSR components. The issue is the immense political and technical complexity of achieving seamless cross-border integration.
Getting all the different country systems to work together?
Precisely. Take the rollout of UTMS, that's the Unified Signaling Standard essential for interoperability. It remains frustratingly slow and uneven. Major nations like France and Germany are significantly behind schedule.
Is there political will to fix it?
There's momentum, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Talk of a unified European HSR master plan, massive funding.
Yeah.
But formidable political and financial hurdles absolutely persist. Getting everyone aligned is tough.
Despite these challenges, we are seeing strategic HSR projects advancing globally. Let's look at the U.S. first. What's Amtrak doing to finally, get up to speed on the Northeast Corridor?
They are making tangible progress, backed by that big infrastructure funding. Amtrak's ambitious plan to modernize the Northeast Corridor, the NEC, America's busiest rail line.
That's got $66 billion behind it, right, from the 2021 Infrastructure Act.
Exactly, $66 billion. And critical projects like the new Frederick Douglass Tunnel in Baltimore are now in major construction.
So dirt is actually moving.
Dirt is moving. The long-term goal is significant increases in speed and capacity. Amtrak aims to more than double annual ridership on the corridor, up to 66 million people by 2040.
66 million, that's a big goal. How about across the pond? This landmark treaty between the UK and Germany sounds like a very big deal, especially post-Brexit.
It really is significant. This bilateral treaty sets up a joint government task force specifically to explore creating a direct rail link between the two countries.
Framed as strengthening post-Brexit ties.
Explicitly framed that way, yes.
Yeah.
A key part of strengthening those ties. And the high-speed operator Eurostar, they've already announced their ambition to run these services.
When are they targeting?
Targeting a launch by the early 2030s. They envision a direct London to Frankfurt service, journey time around 5 hours.
5 hours London to Frankfurt by train. That's competitive with flying.
Very competitive once you factor in airport time. But it is contingent on acquiring a new fleet, up to 50 new high-speed trains, and resolving some tricky logistical hurdles. Border controls, station capacity at London St. Pancras.
Always complexities. Okay. And India,
Hmm.
often called a rising economic power. They're moving forward with their first bullet train project, too.
They are. Construction on the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train project is advancing, and officials confirmed it will use Japan's next-generation E10 series Shinkansen trains.
Japan's newest trains.
Yeah, the E10 series are set to debut in Japan around 2030. Commercial services on the Indian line are targeted to begin in 2027.
Interesting. Is India sticking solely with Japanese tech?
No, and this is a sign of their growing industrial maturity. India is actively looking to diversify its HSR technology partnerships beyond Japan. They're engaging with European providers for things like signaling systems.
And developing homegrown tech.
Yes, they've commissioned their domestic integral coach factory, ICF, to develop a homegrown bullet train as well, building their own capabilities.
And we're seeing broader movement across Asia, too. Conferences, other projects.
Yes, absolutely. The HSR Asia 2025 conference is scheduled for September in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
What's on the agenda there?
A key topic of discussion is expected to be the potential revival of that high-profile Kuala Lumpur-Singapore HSR project. They'll be looking at innovative financing models, integrating AI, digital tech.
So what does all this mean for the bigger picture of global relations? As you said, these aren't just rail lines, are they?
Not at all. What's truly fascinating here is how these projects serve as powerful instruments of geopolitical influence. They're cornerstones of national industrial policy.
How so?
Well, the choice of technology partner, the financing model used for these mega projects, they create deep, long-term strategic alliances and critical supply chain dependencies.
Examples.
China has famously used its HSR expertise as a tool for its Belt and Road Initiative. Japan's collaboration with India on their bullet train is a central pillar of the strategic partnership between those two countries.
And the UK-Germany treaty.
Explicitly positioned as a way to renew friendships in the post-Brexit era.
And India diversifying its tech sources.
That signals a clear industrial strategy aimed at building sovereign capabilities, avoiding overdependence on any single partner. These projects are genuinely strategic assets that will shape economic and political relationships for decades.
Okay. This deep dive has shown us just an incredible amount of complexity, dynamism, change in global transportation. So let's try to distill it. What are the absolute key takeaways for you, our listener, to consider moving forward? What should really be top of mind?
I think the main thing is that the global transportation and logistics landscape is undergoing a truly fundamental paradigm shift.
A paradigm shift? How?
We're moving away from an era that was defined purely by the pursuit of cost efficiency. Just in time, everything, towards an era where resilience, agility, and sustainability are paramount. They're not just buzzwords anymore. This is the new operating reality.
So, given that new reality, how do we best navigate this incredibly volatile geopolitical and policy landscape you described earlier? What's the winning strategy now?
Well, the weaponization of trade policy, the persistence of regional conflicts, they've made geopolitical risk a permanent operational reality. You can't ignore it.
Right.
That whipsaw effect of tariff policies clearly demonstrates that supply chain planning can no longer be based solely on economic forecasts. You have to incorporate robust political risk modeling now.
So what should companies do?
They have to invest in building dynamic, resilient supply networks, move beyond those static single-source models, embrace multi-sourcing strategies, nearshoring, regionalization, anything to reduce exposure to a single point of failure.
And technology's role.
Investment in predictive analytics, AI-powered supply chain orchestration platforms.
Yeah.
It's no longer optional. It's absolutely essential for real-time scenario planning for adaptation.
Okay. And what about capital allocation in this shifting landscape? We talked about that potential rail mega merger, the SF feedstock war. Where should investors and strategists be placing their bets, or at least focusing their due diligence?
Good question. Investors and strategists really need to conduct rigorous due diligence on these huge structural shifts.
For rail?
For rail, any assessment of that potential UP and S merger has to look beyond just the near-term synergies. You need to consider the long-term implications of a highly consolidated market.
Including potential regulatory responses.
Exactly. Things like mandated open access or reciprocal switching agreements, which could mitigate the pricing power of these new giants. That needs to be factored in.
And for sustainable aviation fuel, that's SAF.
For SAF, investment absolutely must prioritize pathways that circumvent that lipid feedstock bottleneck we discussed. The competition with renewable diesel is just too intense.
So focus on the advanced pathways, gasification, alcohol to jet.
Yes. While they're technologically more challenging right now, more capital intensive, Those technologies using more abundant feedstocks like municipal waste or ethanol,
Yeah.
they represent the only truly viable path to scalable, long-term SAF production.
So investing heavily in the current HEFA tech is risky without a secure feedstock plan.
Carries significant risk, absolutely.
Okay, and finally, what about hidden risks? Or maybe emerging opportunities that aren't making the biggest headlines right now, but that we should really be aware of.
I think one of the most significant hidden risks is brewing right there in the North American road freight market.
The trucking sector again?
Yes. While headlines often focus on port congestion or rail mergers, this silent crisis is steadily eroding effective trucking capacity. Remember the aging fleet, falling new truck orders, soaring insurance costs.
Right, the fragility you mentioned.
Exactly. Shippers need to recognize this latent fragility. The erosion of small carrier capacity means the market is primed for extreme rate volatility whenever demand picks back up.
So what's the strategic advice for shippers?
Strategic planning should involve securing longer-term contracts with the larger, more financially stable carriers, and diversifying the carrier base generally to mitigate exposure to a sudden spot market shock when it comes.
Okay, that's the hidden risk. What about an emerging opportunity?
I think that new UK electric car grant is fascinating, with its unique focus on manufacturing sustainability.
The embedded carbon aspect.
Right. It creates a whole new competitive vector. Automakers and investors should be identifying which OEMs are actually best positioned to meet these stringent life cycle emissions criteria.
Because they'll gain a direct price advantage.
A direct price advantage in a key market, yes.
Mhm.
And this model, this idea of regulating embedded carbon, it's likely to be replicated elsewhere. So making supply chain decarbonization a core strategy could become a tangible source of competitive advantage for the early movers.
Very interesting. Well, you've just received a direct download into the complex forces shaping global transportation, from those geopolitical chess matches to the silent crisis on our roads, and from the race for autonomous vehicles to the really complex future of aviation fuel. It's clear this industry isn't just changing, is it? It feels like it's undergoing a fundamental transformation.
It really is. And this deep dive reveals that those old, fragmented, just-in-time models of the past, they're just increasingly ill-suited for this new world of systemic risk and constant technological upheaval.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Whether you're a learner, a strategist, or just intensely curious about how the world works?
Well,
It seems to mean the winning strategies for the next decade will have to be built on a foundation of deep integration, serious technological sophistication, and a really proactive approach to managing what seems like a permanently more volatile and complex global transportation ecosystem.
that sums it up well. And it really raises an important final question, doesn't it, for everyone listening? How will your approach to information, to planning, maybe even to your everyday consumption, how will it adapt to this new era of constant flux that's required resilience?
That is definitely something worth mulling over. Keep those questions coming, folks, and we'll keep doing the deep dive.
See you next time.
See you next time.